Good morning, and thank you, Amit, for having me in this instruction course. Uh, well, uh, it's important in any case of uveitis to have adequate control of inflammation, and systemic treatment is needed for certain conditions, especially if it is a recurrent anterior uveitis, which is troublesome, posterior uveitis, and severe scleritis. This is the guidelines that came out in the American Journal in year 2000, and the aim of this article was very clear: to look at the guidelines for the use of immunosuppressive drugs in patients with ocular inflammatory diseases. And to read the conclusion, it said that although corticosteroids represent one of the mainstays in management of patients with ocular inflammation, in many patients, number one, the severity of the disease; number two, the presence of corticosteroid side effects; number three, the requirement for doses of systemic steroids are highly likely to result in corticosteroid complications, support the rationale for immunosuppressive drugs. And this is the largest group that looked at all the indications for immunosuppression in ophthalmic practice. So if you look broadly, the indications for use of immunosuppressive treatment in our practice would be either for a steroid-sparing therapy, or where there is a failure of the steroid alone to adequately control the inflammation, where you could either use only an immunosuppressive agent or you could do a combination treatment. First line treatment with immunosuppression is clearly seen in Behçet's disease. So if you're diagnosing a patient with Behçet's disease, you can straight away put the patient on immunosuppression. If your diagnosis is Wegener's granulomatosis, you can. And if it is juvenile idiopathic arthritis, again, you can put your patient as a first line treatment with immunosuppression. Relative indication would be VKH, birdshot choroidopathy, which is not seen in India. I have only seen one patient in my practice, which was A29 positive. She happened to be an American lady teaching in the American school. So I don't know what is the experience of others, but I have seen only one case in last 15 years of practice here. And the other indication, relative indication, would be PUK. So what is important to note here is that all of these are chronic inflammatory conditions, which therefore will require a corticosteroid over a longer period of time, and that's where they are severe diseases which would require immunosuppression. Now, whenever you treat any patient of severe ocular inflammation, there are two components to it. One is the induction phase, when you really want to put off the fire, and therefore you want to initially treat and control the condition with steroids, and depending on the severity, you could use IVMP, oral steroids, or periocular or even intraocular steroids. But once you have covered the initial phase of inflammation, you then want to go on to a maintenance phase. And as Amit rightly pointed out, that if you need more than 10 milligrams of steroid to keep the inflammation down after a 3-month period of treatment, then you would then go on to immunosuppressive treatment for suppressing the chronic disease. So hit early, hit hard, and keep on hitting is for the first 3 days if you have a very severe inflammation. Dr. JB's slide. Yeah, sir, thank you for sharing your slides. What is important here is that there is a mortality and morbidity associated with steroids as well. It is not, as Amit was saying, that we are fearing of giving immunosuppression, but the idea is that the corticosteroid associated mortality or morbidity, comorbidity, is almost comparable to that of azathioprine or methotrexate. In fact, in the SIGHT study, there is more associated hazard with long use of systemic steroid as compared to mycophenolate, methotrexate, and azathioprine. So if you are appropriately choosing these agents in your patients, then you could, of course, be giving less comorbidity to these patients. So first line treatment, just some photographic cases. This is one of the patients who was presented to me from Rajasthan. He came with a post-operative hypopion with severe vitritis and exudates. Now, this situation is endophthalmitis unless proved otherwise, and the patient underwent actually a vitrectomy for endophthalmitis. When the patient presented to me, I had a look, and you could see sclerosed vessels with vitritis. And basically, this is a possibility of Behçet's disease. And you don't have, if the patient is is HLA-B51 negative, you really don't know what the diagnosis is. But doing an FFA, here you can see the feathery pattern or fern-like pattern of the entire vascular tree that is inflamed, and that helps to make a diagnosis of Behçet's disease. So while I was following up this patient, he said, look, wherever you gave me a prick, I had inflammation. That was something that prompted me to scratch his skin, and I could elicit a pathology test, and I could see that this is a patient of Behçet's disease. Now, what is important is when you have inflammation of this type, you need to immediately give high-dose oral steroid. Even though the first line of treatment is immunosuppression, they're going to take 4 to 6 weeks to act. So you give IV methylprednisolone to clear this inflammation, and then slowly move on to immunosuppressive agents over the next few days. Juvenile idiopathic arthritis, Amit has a lot of experience. This is, unless you are totally not accepting a cell-free patient, in patients of JIA, this chronic inflammation is going to lead to cataract and glaucoma, and is one of the indications for giving immunosuppressive treatment. Necrotizing scleritis, this is a patient of Wegener's granulomatosis, histologically proven, and that there was Wegener's granulomatosis. CNCA was positive, and the patient has been initially and straight away on to immunosuppressive treatment. Relative indications would be VKH or sympathetic ophthalmia, birdshot choroidal retinopathy, just to repeat, and PUK. So this is a child who had a perforating repair done under topical anesthesia. It's a 7-year-old girl who came to me from interiors of UP. The excited eye had incarceration of the uveal tissue, and angiography showed that this is sympathetic ophthalmia. Now here again, once you made the diagnosis, because this was a child, you need to induce the patient with half dose of IVMP over 3 days. And then this girl was put on 1 year of methotrexate, and this is the photograph after 1 year, and this sympathetic ophthalmia has actually gone into a long-term remission, and she has been off all kinds of immunosuppressive and steroid treatment. Shifting fluid in one eye, other eye is already gone blind. It is possibly a VKH, and these patients will also require, after in maintenance phase, to be on one of the softer immunosuppressive agents like azathioprine or methotrexate, which we ourselves can easily monitor. Remember, immunosuppression is slow and steady. And when you want to put off the fire, you need steroids, but when you want to maintain your patients, then immunosuppression is very helpful. So when to use, I think I will have already elaborated on that. The drugs that I think Puneet has already covered, antimetabolites, the T-cell inhibitors and alkylating agents. Just to say that methotrexate is the only FDA-approved immunosuppressive agent in children. I don't know if the other ones have got approval or not, but I'm fully aware of methotrexate having FDA approval for in use of JIA. And what is interesting is that the bioavailability with subcutaneous injections is very good, and parents can be taught and patients can be taught to use it like insulin, and I think Dr. Neeraj can tell us more about that, but some of the patients have been happily learned to give methotrexate themselves at home. Is that so if you are training your patients and helping them to take over, then you can have a good number of patients on immunosuppressive treatment. So because Amit has already covered this, I will not repeat it. But what is important is that the one you choose, you can choose anyone. Dr. JB's slide again. But the one you want to choose is the one you are familiar with. So, like for example, I have never used chlorambucil. Because I have never used chlorambucil, I won't use it. But I have used plenty of methotrexate, Azaran, Cellcept. So I am very happy to use these agents because I know that what are the side effects, and I have to learn myself the common conditions that I need to advise the patient, and I always give them an informed 2-page to sign and to read, and unless they read and sign it, I don't prescribe it. It's important for them to understand the disease and not be treatment and not be scared of it, and that has helped me in my practice. So I would say that mild cases which can be controlled with low dose prednisolone, you don't need to change treatment. Though side study does say that the morbidity and comorbidity and mortality associated with long-term steroids is also there, and it almost equates that to methotrexate and azathioprine. But you don't need to go into immunosuppression if the treatment is requiring less than 10 or 15 milligrams. For those that require between more than 15 milligrams, you would like to add methotrexate or azathioprine, one of those which you are familiar with. If higher doses are required, you can do a combination treatment or triple treatment. You can continue with methotrexate and azoran, and you can probably add cyclosporin, and you can add a rheumatologist to your treatment plan, because if you are giving double agent, I think it is wiser to have a physician to take care of your patients who are requiring more than 2 drugs. And add cyclophosphamide, especially I keep it for patients with bad scleritis, where it works wonderfully well. And I don't use it so much for uveitis, but definitely if I have a patient of bad scleritis, my first line of treatment would be cyclophosphamide. So how to start? I think Puneet has already elaborated on it. But what is important to understand is that you start with a low dose, repeat the blood counts after 15 days, make sure that the bone marrow suppression is not there, because we are not able to do a methyltransferase test here. And after you're sure that there is no bone marrow suppression, you can, in a slowly, gradually, 4-weekly, step by step, increase your treatment to a safe level. So the indications, I would repeat, they are all chronic inflammatory conditions, or they are recurrent conditions that are not going to go away, and you'll require treatment with immunosuppressive agents. Just a short note on biologicals, that biologicals are now becoming a part of our practice, and they are combining with the TNF, which is either membrane bound or free floating, and is helpful in I call it biological warfare of the medical fraternity, to try and fight the TNF, which is the cytokine involved in inflammation. And the one place where I am happy to use it is in HLA-related uveitis, where you have patients who have got ankylosing spondylosis and ocular disease, and you would be patients are very happy to be on one of the biologicals. So they're both patients who have the other patient you can see has got long-term steroid effects, and the other patient has gone totally bent up with the ankylosing spondylosis, and both patients are now on biologicals. So I would say immunosuppressive agents are not expensive as was earlier. Now the recent expensive drugs are biologicals, and methotrexate is easy to monitor, and if need be, the ophthalmologist can do it themselves. Take a written signed consent and share the responsibility of dosage and management of side effects with your physician colleagues. Thank you for your patient hearing.